Hi all. Okay, we're going to do some more PowerShell. We're going to work with the user profile. Before we get started, we'll do a joke here. Old book, World's Book of Best Jokes. It goes back to like 1940s or something like that. You can tell it's a real old book. They're talking about a man and wife here. It says his wife ran away from home, so he ran away too. Why did he run away? He was afraid she might change her mind and come back. Okay, so we'll start PowerShell here. And then I've got a file here with some commands. So we're going to create a profile file for your user account. First, we'll test to see if you already have one. We use test path, and it checks to see if you have a profile file already created. Okay, so that returned false. We ran this command. It saw that you did not have a profile file, so it returns the word false. Okay, if you have created one previously, it'll return true. This profile thing here with the $sign, that creates a variable. That $sign means it points to your profile file. Your profile file is just a text file. It's just a Notepad file. Okay, now we'll create the file. So we're using new item, commandlet. What type of file are we going to create? Type of file is a file, just a Notepad file, just a plain text file. And this force creates this file if you already have one. It'll just write over it. It'll clear the file out. So okay, so now we have a profile file created. You can see here it's just a text file and archive file. Time. Here's the actual name of the file. It's a pretty long name, and it's a PS1 is the extension. Your profile file is just a script, a PowerShell script. Okay, it runs commands. We can go back and do this test path again. We can just use the history. And you can see now, because we have a profile file, this command returns true because we have created one. Okay, if we want to, we could go and look at the file. It's a regular physical file. We can just go to your user account here. The document folder, Windows PowerShell folder, and here's the file. You can right click that, go to properties. Here's the actual path. Here's the name of the file. We could go to C:, users, user1, document, Windows PowerShell, and there's the same file. It's just two ways to get to the same thing. I have a shortcut to it here on my desktop. So here's our actual file. If we open that, you can see it's just an empty file. Okay? Okay, so this variable here, don't let this $ mess you up. When we go into working more with scripts, then that'll make more sense. This is a fancy way to get to your profile file. Just by running that command there, it shows us the path to your profile file. Okay, your path might be different to your folder. If you have a standard installation, it should be the same. So your user account, document folder, Windows PowerShell folder, or your computer, your C drive, users, your user account, whatever you're logged in as. Document folder, Windows PowerShell folder. This path here will show you where it's at. You don't really need to go there, but you know, we're trying to learn how this PowerShell stuff works. So, okay, now we want to add things to our profile file. Okay, so we can open it here, use Notepad, and open the profile file. Okay, so you can see by the name here, this is our profile file. For now, we're just going to add one command to it. Go set alias. L is the same as clear host. And then save it. Close it. And then we have to reload the profile file. See, this PowerShell here, this is when we opened it, it checked to see if we had a profile file. If we did, it ran it. Okay, we didn't have one, so it didn't run it. So we run this command here. This dot means reload the profile file. Now you can see here we're getting an error message. Okay, PowerShell can't run this command, and that's because by default Microsoft has the execution policy turned off. PowerShell can't run scripts by default. You have to go and turn that execution policy on so it can run scripts. Okay, the reason why they turn it off because it's a security thing, and if you accidentally run something that you're not supposed to, you could load a virus or something nasty. So we could go out and look at what the execution policy is. So you can see here our execution policy is set to restricted. Okay, so we want to set the execution policy to remote signed. So here we set the execution policy. We're using the commandlet on us, on the current user. The scope of the execution policy is the current user. And then the execution policy is going to be changed to remote signed. This is it seems kind of like a redundant thing to me. You know, we're telling it to set the execution policy here, then we have to say it again here, but that's the way it's done. So remote signed means if you download a script from somewhere else, it has to be signed. We'll go into more of that later when we start running scripts, we start creating our own scripts. So this restricted and remote signed, those are the two main ones that you'll usually work with. There's a few other ones too, but so now it's just saying, are you sure you want to change this? By default, it's no. You have to actually press Y. So I'll press the Y here. See how I press the Y down here? And then hit enter. Okay, so you can see here they kind of make it a little difficult for you to change the execution policy, and they do that on purpose so you don't accidentally change it and then end up running a script that might mess up your system. You know, it might load a virus or something. Okay, so we have the execution policy set to remote signed. Okay, so we can go back and check that it was changed. We can go back to this get execution policy, and we can see that it has been changed to remote signed. Okay, now we have to reload the profile file. See, we created it and we made it so we could use it with the execution policy, but now we have to load it into PowerShell. So that's this guy again. So reload our profile file. Okay, so now it got our changes. It went out, got our profile file, and brought it into PowerShell. Okay, so now we can run that L command. Okay. There's a lot more that we could add to the profile file. You know, sometimes they can get really big. You add lots of functions and things like that to it. But I want to keep this as simple as possible. Just show you the basics of how to create one, how to add things to it, you know, how to set the execution policy. If you want, you can go back and set your execution policy to restricted. Say yes. And check that it went back to restricted here. See, now we can't reload our profile because our execution policy is set to restricted. Instead of doing it like this, we could just turn off PowerShell and then turn it back on. And that does the same as running this command. So two ways to reload your profile file. Okay. So when we turned PowerShell on, our execution policy is set to restricted. So it couldn't run the script. It couldn't run the profile file script. So that's why we got this error message here. If we set the execution policy back to remote signed, then when we restart PowerShell here, let's say we turn it off, we come back tomorrow, see now we don't get that error message, that big red thing, and our alias is there. So that's the purpose of using a profile file. Common commands that you like to use and you have shortcuts to, or next video will show how to do functions inside a profile file. That would be the main reason why you would use this type of thing. If you want to delete the profile file, you can use a remove item. If you wanted to, you could just go to your folder and click delete. It would do the same thing. It won't hurt the system. Or we could use a remove item. So remove item here. So now if we go to the folder, we can see that file is gone. We're only working with the profile file for your user account, and for now that's really the only one that you have to worry about. We're just getting started. Okay, see ya. Bye.